Hi, everyone. Welcome to I can now say it, the award-winning Outdoors with Hiking Bob podcast. You can find me on my website, hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent, more of that coming up. Also, all the other podcasts we've done, which is 376, I think, up until this one. So we're looking at 377. Anyway, a lot going on here. You can find me at hikingbob.com. Also, don't forget you can help support this podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob, and help support this podcast. So, what am I talking about when I say we're award-winning? Well, this podcast was awarded the American Advertising Federation Colorado Chapter's Icon Award for Best Podcast of 2023. And that's not awarded for a specific episode, but for the podcast in general. Somebody nominated us. I'm not even sure who did it, but somebody with that organization. And if you've never heard of them, I'm not surprised that they are a trade organization for the advertising and editorial communities. They apparently are a rather large nationwide organization with hundreds of thousands of members, and they have a rather large chapter here in Colorado Springs. But somebody there nominated us for this award. I am thrilled to death that they nominate us for this award. Just very thrilled that they did, and just excited beyond belief and honored to have gotten this award. This award is done on by nomination and then a small committee. It is not a popularity contest. Some of you may remember some time ago I was soliciting people to vote for our podcast, which was mostly for a different award, which is mostly done by the number of votes. And of course, it wasn't awarded by merit at all. And if you were a bigger podcast than us, then of course you got bigger votes or more votes, a bigger voting base. So I stopped competing for that because we were up against bigger podcasts that we had no chance of winning again just by listener numbers, and because it wasn't based on merit. I thought we had a better podcast. In any case, this was a merit-based award. Very honored to have received it. Very thrilled. It was a nice ceremony or dinner that they had where they awarded them. Our friends at Colorado Fun Guide, who I also write for yearly, got an award for Best Magazine, I believe it was. Pam Zubek, the excellent writer at the Colorado Springs Independent, where I've been writing, also got an award for Best Reporter. So all in all, a very just exciting night, and just thrilled to death that we got it. For that, I'd like to thank a lot of people who made this happen, one of which was Kevin Wild Westendorf, my co-host since the beginning. And as a side note, he's not here tonight or today for this podcast because he was unfortunately ill and couldn't make it to record it. But many, many thanks to Kevin for being just a gracious co-host and always being flexible and trying to get in here whenever we can to record a podcast and suggesting topics and just being a great co-host for this podcast. And so many thanks to him. Many thanks to all you listeners out there for this podcast. If you're a new listener, because you heard of us through the award, then by all means go back into my website at hikingbob.com, click on the podcast link, and you can find every single podcast we've done, and find somebody there that you may be interested in hearing from, who I interviewed, or a topic that we discussed, and select that. All the supporters, whether you've been an advertiser or whether you are a Patreon supporter, we want to thank you for your support in making this happen. Also, all the guests, the people who have appeared on the podcast, many of whom have appeared more than once. Really appreciate you having your trust and faith in me to at the very least treat you fairly and be help contribute to make this podcast an even better one than if it was just a couple of people talking about things. You have made this really happen, and the guests have been a significant part of the success of this podcast. And last but not least, Dave Gardner over at Studio 809 Podcast. Many of you know that's where we got started. Dave got me started on this, and he offered me a a place there at Studio 809 when I got this started, and a lot of technical advice and some really good insight. And he has a career in broadcasting and video and media, and he really helped make this happen. So special thanks also to Dave. And I just want to thank all of you listening. I can't thank you all enough. Your support and your emails and suggestions and comments have really made this podcast what it is today. So thank you to all of you. And we look forward to continuing this podcast and making things happen. Moving on to awards, the Discover COS calendar, which comes out every year from the Parks Department, was also released last week. And happy to report that one of my photos made it into the contest this year. My photo is featured, I believe it's for April. And thanks to those who selected my picture out of a number of pictures I submitted. They did things a little differently this year. In the past, I had maybe a couple of pictures in the calendar, and other photographers had more than one. This year, each winning photographer could only have one picture, which opened up to more photographers getting exposure in the calendar, and the calendar looks lovely. And congratulations to everyone who's in there. In the past, they printed a limited number of calendars because this program is paid for by a private company. So the number of calendars was limited, and they were free, and they would typically run out of them very quickly and just not have enough to go around for a lot of people who wanted one. So this year they're going to be selling the calendars. They're going to be $15 a piece, and the proceeds from that go to the Trails and Open Space and Parks program. So they go right back into the Parks Department and help fund that program. Supplies will still be limited, so you still don't want to drag your feet to order your copy. And you can do that. You go to coloradosprings.gov and you'll find a link to how to order the calendar. And again, thanks to everyone for the support for that. I was not able to attend the ceremony. My wife attended in my absence because I was on a trip that I had originally scheduled around this. But long story short, I couldn't be there. She attended in my place and said it was a very nice awards reveal ceremony, and very thankful to be a part of that. I mentioned earlier that I have a column at The Independent, and some of you know that column ran for a number of years as a weekly column, and then The Independent earlier this year hit a financial setback, and my column was suspended for a while. And I say suspended, it was just put on hold for a while. Suspended seems to indicate some disciplinary stuff, which is actually not it at all. In any case, it came back as a monthly column for a while, but I'm sad to report that there are still some financial issues at The Independent, and my column has once again gone from weekly to not at all. So for the foreseeable future, and I've been led to believe that it's going to be at least until spring, my column at The Independent is on hold again. Well, my personal opinion is I want it back. I love being able to do that and share information and ideas and things with everybody out there. It seems to me that for the very small amount that I'm paid for that column, it's kind of hard to understand they can't afford it. I don't know what the details are. Of course, since I'm not actually an employee but a contractor, they don't share that information with me. But if you would like to see that column continue, then I really do encourage you, if you feel so inclined, to write to the Indy, call the Indy, and tell me you want me back. I would love to come back there and do it. I don't get rich doing it. This isn't a thing about money. It's just about, can I provide you with a good quality column? So I look forward to hopefully coming back there sometime in the near future, hopefully before the spring. A lot of stuff happens around here in the winter, as many of you know, and I really want to come back to writing. So see if we can make that happen. As I mentioned earlier, I was away last week because I was on a trip. I went and visited the East Coast, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I had to do a couple things. One was to visit family. The other to hopefully get pictures of the East Coast fall colors, which are much more colorful than here. Not that the colors here are not beautiful, but they are, but they're much more colorful, a lot more to see there. And also I was going to take a side trip to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is a couple hours from where I was staying, and spend a weekend there to photographed the covered bridges in Amish country there in Lancaster County. And as things would normally have it, I was scheduled to spend a weekend with my friend, who I've known for many, many years in Lancaster County. I got there Friday and was going to leave there Monday. My goal was to spend Saturday and Sunday taking pictures of the bridges, which are beautiful, some of which have been there for 100 years or more. Unfortunately, it rained all day Saturday. Normally, a little bit of rain's not a bad thing. Actually, it adds some atmosphere, especially if it's a little misty and stuff. But it didn't just rain, it poured rain for the entire day. I was able to get some pictures of some of the bridges in between rain, but it literally would be that I would be driving through a bridge and there wouldn't be any rain, and I get through the bridge, park the car, get out, and by the time I got out of the car, it started pouring rain again. And it was raining so hard that it just didn't make for good pictures. I got some. The good part was I spent the day in the rain going from bridge to bridge to bridge, and I didn't hit all of them. There's a lot of bridges out there, but I managed to get through a number of them in the northern part of the state. The northern part of Lancaster County, and kind of just did some scouting, figured out which ones were photogenic, which ones were not. And the next day on Sunday, went back out there and we had beautiful weather and was able to shoot some of the bridges and came back with some really nice pictures, but not as much as I'd like. As far as fall colors go, I was probably leaving there about 4 days too early. They were just a little delayed as they were here, and I got some nice fall foliage pictures, but they were much, much nicer over this past weekend from all the pictures I'm seeing from back there. And just couldn't, didn't work out, and it happens. It's just, you take your shot and you hope for the best, and it just is what it is. So still got some great pictures, got to spend time with family, got to spend time with friends, did get to go shoot the bridges of Lancaster County, which, are just beautiful. Just everything didn't quite work as well as I wanted to. Another thing I did while I was out there was I visited a place called the Patterson Great Falls, which is in Patterson, New Jersey, about 2.5 hours north of where I'm from in the southern part of the state. And it's an old waterfall in the old town of Patterson. It's a national historical park, so it's not a national park per se, but it is managed by the National Park Service and the city of Patterson. And it's an old historic waterfall. Of course, waterfalls are all, they've been there forever. But this one was also used in the 1700s and 1800s to power a mill and eventually to generate power. And it's got this beautiful bridge that crosses over the bottom of the fall. I should say crosses over after the falls drop down. So it crosses over this big divide, this big gap where the waterfalls are below it. It is over the last couple of years, come under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service. They had park rangers there who were very helpful and helped guide me to where I can get some great pictures. Much of the area is under some construction there to establish some parking areas and I think a visitor center eventually. And unfortunately, the footbridge going over the falls is closed because it's unstable, so you couldn't walk on it. But you can get to both sides of it. You can walk all the way around on a city street and on another, road bridge to get to it. Very beautiful spot. It lended itself quite well to some beautiful black and white pictures. And if you're on the social media, you could find them on my Facebook page. And also, I think I posted some on Instagram, but if not, I'll get to it. Anyway, very beautiful trip. So got a lot done in about 8 days I was out there. But the Patterson Great Falls is a pretty cool spot to visit if you ever find yourself for some reason in northern New Jersey, which I get, a lot of you probably not big thing on your list to go see. But it was a really cool place to go visit and just absolutely gorgeous. It's really pretty. And if you're a photographer, you'd appreciate that instantly. When I was out there, I said, this will look good in black and white. And it most certainly did. So really, really nice place. And been there, obviously, it goes way back. And I've heard from people who remember when they lived there and they drove over it as a kid, and it really wasn't anything special. It was just a road that went by this waterfall, and they didn't realize how gorgeous this waterfall is and, how it's become a National Park Service historical site. So pretty neat. I did a little hiking while I was out there. I only went hiking, I think, one day because I was busy taking pictures and running around and visiting with people. But I revisited the Batona Trail in southern New Jersey, which goes by a place called in the Wharton State Forest, and Batsto State Park, which is not far from where I grew up and where my mom lives. And Batsto State Park is a place that goes back to pre-Revolutionary War days, and it was where a river came through there and powered a mill, and they've restored a lot of it. And there's this beautiful lake there, and got some wonderful pictures and hike there. And hiking there is a bit different than here. The soil is very sandy, the land is very flat, the foliage is very green and thick and lush. The fall colors, as we talked about, is very different. Very beautiful place, but enjoyed visiting there again, and it's so close to where my family lives that it was just a lot of fun to go there. And I think if I was still living there, trust me, I'm not in any hurry to go back to live there, but if I was living there, I would probably spend a lot of time there. And as it is, my mom definitely spends a lot of time there because it's a short drive from her house. And if you haven't been there, if you want to look that up, just type in Batsto, Batsto State Park or Batsto Village, and you'll see a lot about the history of it. It's a really, really cool place. I forgot what it's like to drive in the East Coast in southern New Jersey and the Philadelphia and the southeastern Pennsylvania, but it takes a very long time to drive a very short distance. And I certainly missed driving here, where we get places a whole lot quicker. Even in what we call rush hour traffic, doesn't even begin to meet up with what rush hour traffic is like back there. But in any case, just a lovely trip. If you ever get a chance to visit the East Coast in the fall to see the fall colors, whether it's in New Hampshire, Vermont, or upstate New York, or Pennsylvania, or Virginia, any place out there, you really would be shocked if you haven't seen it before about the variety of colors that you could see there. And it really was just a beautiful, beautiful trip. So if you ever get a chance to go out there, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's worth a visit at least once in your lifetime to go there and see the fall colors on the East Coast. Or actually, you don't have to go that far east. I'm on the understanding that, you know, places like Michigan and Ohio and Indiana and Illinois all share the same beautiful colors. What I do like about going all the way to the East Coast is some of those towns. The town I lived in is pre-Revolutionary War era, and some of those places I visited in Lancaster County were pre-Revolutionary War era, and those old houses that are hundreds of years old and still standing, and you know, sit relatively close to the street with a small lawn and porches, wrap-around porches, a kind of architecture that I miss that seems to have gone away. And there's not a garage right out front. One of my pet peeves is a garage at the front of the house where you can't even find the front door. There's nothing less inviting to me than that. Beautiful places, and I really encourage you, if you get a chance, just to look at the history. Go to Boston and look at the history there. Go to Philadelphia and visit Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, and go to Washington, D.C. and visit all the monuments there that are just absolutely beautiful. I think you'd really enjoy it, and do it in the fall when you get to see the fall colors. I think you will have a, I don't want to say life-changing event, but I think you'd end up with a very much a memorable event. Speaking of fall colors, if you may have noticed, the fall colors are in full swing here in the Front Range. The fall colors in bloom, the fall colors in display here in Colorado Springs is just some of the best I've seen on the Front Range and along, Monument Creek and Fountain Creek. It's just unbelievable how yellow and beautiful things are. Probably the best I've seen at this elevation, down below where we normally see, down below the upper elevations where we normally see the aspens and stuff. Just some of the best I've seen in a long time. Just absolutely beautiful. I urge you to get out there and take pictures. Go to Bear Creek Park and that whole area around there. Go down Monument Valley Trail, Monument Valley Park, and just look at how beautiful it is and get some pictures while you can. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There is some really cold weather coming this weekend here. Temperatures may be below freezing, and they're certainly going to be in the they're definitely going to be below freezing. Going to be in the single digits overnight, or at least the low teens overnight. So that may kill off whatever foliage is left. So I highly urge you or encourage you to go visit those areas and see those fall colors before they completely go away. I think that this freeze we're going to have later on this week and this weekend may kill off what's left there. So definitely get out there and visit there while you can. I've been trying to get out as much as I can and get photographs and just get a look at those and go hiking in that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Moving on to a couple other things going on in the community with parks, the Blodgett master plan, the Blodgett open space master plan process is still ongoing. They've had the last of the public meetings, but they're still soliciting for public input. They're parsing all the data they've got. They've got a lot of input. They're still looking for public input. You can do that online. So I encourage you, if you want to you want to have some say in what happens there or provide your opinion, to absolutely do that. I know one of the big topics coming up is the topic of parking. As the open space expands and more trails go in there, it seems to be a pretty contentious issue. I'll withhold my opinions on that for the time being, except to say that when we expanded that a little bit at the beginning, we gave the people there what they wanted, and now all of a sudden they decided that that's not what they want anymore. That makes it pretty hard to govern and pretty hard to manage. But you know what? The job of the Parks Department is to take that public input and try to accommodate as best they can to make it an enjoyable experience for everybody. They're trying to do that as hard as they can, but they need your input. So go to coloradosprings.gov, look for the Blodgett Master Plan process, and definitely submit your input. You can also come to a TOPS Working Committee meetings, because that is a TOPS property, or a Park Advisory Board meeting. And later on, go to City Council and let them know what you want to, what you think. This will be a formal presentation for the TOPS Working Committee and Park Advisory Board after the first of the year. So I encourage you to keep an eye out on the city website for those meeting agendas when they come out, so that if you have you want to come to the meeting and see the presentation that the committee that's working on that has to present to those boards, and I know what happens is they bring it up on 1 month and then it gets voted on for recommendation the following month. And the TOPS Working Committee and Park Advisory Board, which are your citizen representatives to the Parks Department and also to City Council, they will make their recommendations. And that's a good chance, a good opportunity for you to come and let your feelings and thoughts and comments be heard. And I can tell you that as chair of the TOPS Working Committee, we do want to hear what you have to say. Our job there is to represent the community. We may not always agree with you, and sometimes we will. And but we do want to hear from you, because that's our job, is to hear what you have to say. Over at El Paso County, as you probably know, the Fox Run Park Nature Center is an ongoing process. The county is committed to building a nature center. But it does require planning and it does require fundraising. They're going to have an open house on Wednesday, November 8th at the Pikes Peak Brewing Company on Lake Woodmore Drive up in Monument from 6 to 8 p.m., where they'll have people there to answer your questions. They'll present their kind of working plans for what they want this to look like, and they'll answer questions and stuff like that. So I encourage you, if you're interested in that, and I think it's a great idea and a great addition to the county's park portfolio, to add another nature center. That if it's anything like the preliminary plans are, it's going to be absolutely beautiful, and I think everybody will find it to be a great asset. So if you're going to look at that, or if you want to be involved in that or want to see what that's all about, November 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Pikes Peak Brewing on Lake Woodmore Drive in Monument will be that open house. And you can also attend the County Park Advisory Board meetings and, hear what has to be said there, or voice your opinion or your comments or concerns. Again, just like here at the city, those are your citizen representatives to the city government, the county government and the county parks department. And they, just like us at the city, and I was chair of the county parks board for a while, we do really want to hear what you have to say and encourage that. Going back again to the city, The TOPS Working Committee has some openings for alternate members, and I think they're still taking applications for that. So go to the city website, and if you're interested, apply for that. The alternate members are people who sit in on the meetings and, just kind of, be in attendance at the meetings with the idea that if there's a vacancy on the committee, these are people who are informed and up to date on what's going on and can easily move into a position on the TOPS Working Committee. The Park Advisory Board also has alternate members. The county, I believe, has alternate members. Not that they have any openings now, right now that I'm aware of, but those are openings that are available at the TOPS Working Committee for alternate members. So please check that out if you're interested, and we'd love to have you on board. Another ongoing topic is the topic of e-bikes in city parks. It's been kind of a thing that's personal opinion is it's gone on way too long without a decision made on how to implement that. One of the sticking points has been with the TOPS owned properties either donated or purchased through the TOP program. There is language in the ordinance that created the program that specifically bans motorized vehicles, and because of that, the city attorney has issued a statement or an opinion that changing that would require a vote of the people, because the ordinance was created by a vote of the people. And as you're probably aware, with any extensions of the program, which we just recently did, all those things and any changes to the program require a vote of the people. So you could probably expect to see some movement to have a vote come up on whether or not to allow e-bikes on TOPS properties. And those would be properties like Red Rock Canyon Open Space, Stratton Open Space, the newly created or newly purchased Fisher's Canyon Open Space, the Blodgett Open Space we're just talking about, Blue Stem Prairie Open Space. There's a number of them. All these are places that, under the existing language, a motorized vehicle such as an e-bike is not allowed. So that's going to be something that you're going to see probably more of over the next year, and hopefully, some language gets drafted and that gets put on the ballot next November, and we can move on with this and not drag this out as long as it's gone, which is way too long, and actually make this happen. So that is something else that you should watch for. I think that's all I have for here today. I'm sorry that Kevin couldn't make it here. Kevin, I hope you're feeling better. And for all of you who listened to the podcast and supported it and helped us get this wonderful award as the best podcast for 2023, again, thanks to all of you. Thank you to all for listening. And I think with that, we'll say thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast, and we'll see you next time.